amazing. Well, what's been happening? First of all, thank you for all your well wishes and inquiries about my little incident. So, what happened was, when was it? What day was it? Wednesday night. About 1 a.m. at night, I'm asleep. Oh, and a pain in my sort of side woke me up. Like a shooting pain. That never happens. So, oh God, what was that? And it happened again. And my first thought was obviously liver cancer. Right? And in the middle of the night, that praise, you're convinced, well, that is it. I've blown it, you know. And I got another pain, oh God. And then I felt sick. And I went to throw up, but I couldn't. Which I thought, maybe it's stomach cancer. Right? And then I couldn't be sick. There was nothing there. But the pain of the vomiting was incredible. It was an intensity. And you forget how bad vomiting is. You know what I mean? You just forget how awful. I mean, never mind the illness and thinking you're going to die. You can't breathe. And I think I'm going to choke. I think that I'm not going to get my breath back between it. And the spasm, like the next day, even when I was over it, if I coughed, my ribs, I thought, I've ripped my stomach lining here. So, right, all this is happening in my head as well. And then that happened a few times, and I started sweating and cold sweating. I thought, what is this? It's coronavirus. I've had that before. I called it off one of my nieces, or great nieces, one Christmas. They were, everyone got ill. And again, that happened in the middle of the night as well. So I sort of started recognising it. Oh, Jesus. That didn't stop me thinking at one point that it might have been radiation sickness. I just thought, well, it could be. You know what I mean? You never know. Someone might have been walking behind me with a bit of plutonium once. Right? But anyway, I was pretty sure after a couple of hours this was coronavirus. So I was trying to fight it then. And then it started, the other end started, which is a relief, really, because I'd rather it come out that way than fire on my face. You know what I mean? Because diarrhea, you go, whatever. You go, it's not me. I can't, it's just happening, right? Emptying, like just pulling the plug. But, I think everything, I'd rather everything came out that way. And then I was still sort of wretched as well. And then nothing was coming, and then a bit of sort of brown stuff. I thought, is that bile? Or am I vomiting from my ass? Right? Because I know sort of too much but not enough. Because I knew that a cyanide makes, reverse peristalsis from the bowel. So you die of vomiting your own. Right? So I thought, it was like I had some cyanide. But anyway, in general, give me diarrhea over vomiting. Not even vomiting, retching without the relief of sick. Is this interesting? Is this what you tuned in for? Now, has anyone talked about sick and shit as much in any broadcast ever? So anyway, it was at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock rock. And it's both ends. Right? And I know a lot of people during coronavirus, they've told me that they were sitting on the toilet and throwing up in the bath. Now, because I've got a bit of cash, my bath is miles from the toilet. Right? So I couldn't do that. So I was having to spin round. I was trying and time it. I was going, no, quick, sit down. So, the old Roxy Music song, Both Ends Burning, springs to mind. So anyway, then I couldn't even, water made me feel sick. I couldn't even rehydrate because water gave me the sort of urge to throw up and it hit my stomach. And then eventually, what worked, I had a Lemsip and a Gaviscon, is it Gaviscon? And it sort of worked well. I could lay down without wanting to be sick. If I moved, I wanted to be sick, but I could lay down. And it was all over by about 6 o'clock that morning. I still couldn't get up. I couldn't eat. So I think I got up about, I had half a banana for lunch in bed. And I think I eventually got up about 3 o'clock that afternoon. And it was all over. I still felt weak. I mean, I couldn't even face a beer till about 8 o'clock that night. So, yeah, that's the story. Unbelievable. Don't want that again. That's the other thing, you know it's going to happen again one day, don't you? You know it's going to, you know. Anyway, questions. Keena, do you get any anxiety before playing gigs at massive venues? Yes. Such as the States? If so, how do you deal with this? Well, if you mean the Hollywood Bowl, yes. And I don't usually. People say, do you get nervous for a gig? And I say, no. I'd never get nervous for a gig. I know what I'm doing. The warm-ups, I don't know laugh or not, but it's just, that's what it's about, and you enjoy that. And then by the time you're playing arenas, you know it works, and it sort of works every night. I think the only time I've got nervous is like the Golden Globes, because it's live and there's 100 million people watching. So if you make one mistake, everyone sees it and you can't take it back. But I don't usually get nervous for a gig. But I did with the Hollywood Bowl, and I don't know whether it was the sense of occasion or it was the unknown or it was so big. The sound check, I walked out of the sound check and I went, because it's not just a big venue, it sort of goes on forever, and it goes into nature. There's no walls. It just sort of, the seats go on forever, and into the trees. It's like a natural, I don't know what you'd call it. It's like a valley, and they built this stadium. And when I went out, the crowd were amazing, and it was you lose your nerves immediately. Actually, as soon as you walk out, you're at work, and you forget everything. It's just a gig then. But the weird thing about it was, all my fears they disappeared. I was thinking, what if they're not listening? Of course they were listening. Some of them have paid thousands of dollars. They're not going to go and not listen, right? So, but these play on your mind. What if it rains? It didn't. First of all, I said when the promoter said, I said, what about the echo? So big. Well, there's no echo because there's no walls. Oh yeah, of course. Science. So it was great immediately. But with the thing that it's built in, like an aircraft hangar, like the shape of like a sky dish, right? There's birds roosting. So I went out and there's a roar of the crowd, but all these birds were sort of woken up. So the crowd couldn't hear them, but I could hear. I was like playing a gig in an aviary. So it was quite sweet. It was quite like a Disney cartoon. So yeah, I don't usually get anxious, but I did there. How do you deal with it? You just got to go. It's what's the worst that can happen? You don't have to do it once. You know, you're not filming it. It's not like, I've got to get everything perfect. You just play with it, and you're just going to work, really. You just got to go. You're going to work, and you think, oh, what a privilege! This is a privilege. This is amazing. But the thing that gets me through it is, they've paid money to see you. They want to like it. You know what I mean? 20,000 people don't buy a ticket to go there and go, this is rubbish. You know, they're your fans, really. If I walked out, you know, if, I don't know, One Direction were playing and I went out and said, can I do 20 minutes, lads? I might struggle. But they're all there to see me, so it couldn't be more conducive to being a brilliant gig. And it was amazing, yeah, it is still surreal. So thanks to everyone who bought a ticket and everyone who tried, and yeah, it was an amazing night. And the promoter said you could do this again, and I went, when? And they went, do it again in 18 months. And I thought, I was very flattered, but I think I'd quite like it to be, there's part of me that goes, I could do even better, and it'd be amazing to play it twice. But I think there's something amazing about playing it once, if that makes sense. It makes it more special. That time I played the Hollywood Bowl. But we'll see. Sam, when you do your live shows in countries where English isn't their first language, do you have to adjust your sets at all? Do some jokes not land as well? Well, I only play countries where English is their second language, but they are fluent in it. So, and also, any country you play, they're only going if they speak English. They know I'm not doing it in their language. So even if wherever you play, if you play, you know, a big country, you only need a few thousand people that are fluent in your language, and they're the only ones that go along. And also there are certain countries that there is no language barrier at all. Scandinavia, you know, Benelux countries, you know, cosmopolitan areas of most of Europe speaks English. English people are the lazy ones. No, I do make some. I probably do speak a bit clearer. Also, when I'm playing an overseas venue, I'm playing big venues because I'm only there one night. So I do play big venues. So you sort of speak clearer anyway. You speak to the back of the room and articulate a bit more. So that certainly helps. I talk about universal subjects. I'd never talk about what I watched on Channel 4 last night. I'd never talk about, you know, British Big Brother. I talk about, you know, universal subjects, you know, Hitler, cancer, famine. Those dudes are evergreen. So I talk about universal subjects. The thing that sometimes catches you out, that even though they speak fluent English and I understand every word you say and your cultural references are universal, there was a thing in I think it was in Supernature where the line was it was then I realised I could kill myself, and in some countries it didn't get the laugh. And I thought, oh, they don't know what, that's a euphemism. They don't know, why would you kill yourself? They don't have that saying, so I had to change it to then I realised I'd made a terrible mistake, right? So it's things like that you don't, and we use a lot of euphemism. We use a lot of sayings and euphemisms that we just take for granted. You can't have your cake and eat it, you know. And people go, "What do you mean you can't have your cake and eat it?" What? So you don't realise that those euphemisms are really sort of parochial in a way. But outside that, everything works everywhere, really. I mean, certainly 99% of it. But yeah, you do think about those things. Ricky, have you got a stand-up venue on your bucket list? Where is your dream place? I haven't, because I wouldn't really know about them till I've played them. There's certainly places I go, oh my God, that was magical. I definitely want to play there again. And I think given that if they speak fluent English, the venue probably makes more of a difference than the country in many ways. When you're playing 10,000 people are the same, you know. But there are certainly magical venues and magical cities like, you know, Dublin. Dublin's always amazing. It's always one louder. I think the Olympia in Paris was great. Rock and roll venues are really good. Those rock and roll sort of places that are sort of old established venues. Victorian theatres are really good. They're packed in, they're shaped right. It's perfect for comedy. But now arenas are getting better. I didn't like arenas at first, but now arenas are built better with better acoustics and the better shape and better sound. And with the big screens, it's almost more intimate because they're at the event, and they can look up and see your facial expressions that they couldn't traditionally. Dream place. I like visiting places. I like finding out. So there's loads of places I haven't been. You know, what have I been to? I can't even work it out. A few % of the world. I heard. I think Afterlife certainly is big in, like, you know, South America. So I'd love to play somewhere like Argentina one day. It's just too far, isn't it? I've heard there's a new plane that goes to America in like 50 minutes. I'll probably be before it's... I don't know though. Technology's moving along, isn't it? So there, I'll fly around. I'll go... If I can get to anywhere in the world in a couple of hours, I will play everywhere. If it's really safe. I want someone else to test it first. I forget the name of the bloke who's doing it, but, you know, let him test it. I want to know I want the stats. I want to see how... If they say this is safer than crossing the road, that is a particularly surreal thing to do. For a British stand-up comedian to play the Hollywood Bowl, let alone sell it out, is pretty amazing. But yes, I don't take any of this for granted. I wake up every day thinking I've got to do something here. Got to keep, you know, you try and keep improving, keep interest in it, and you're grateful. No, I'm not one of those that thinks I can do anything and it just lasts forever. You have to work at it. In fact, in a way, it sort of gets harder because you're judged by your last thing. So the better your last thing is, the harder it is for you to beat it. So yeah, I do. I can't believe it. I mean, I always look back to my beginnings, really. I'm very, very grateful, and I know how lucky I am in a way, because there is an amount of luck. You know, it could have happened to someone else. There's loads of people that are as good and work as hard, and it doesn't happen. Yeah, of course I did. Are you a vegan for health or political reasons? Well, neither. I think you mean ethical reasons. I'm a vegan because of ethical reasons. I think it is probably healthier in certain aspects, particularly for, you know, things like colon cancer and probably obesity and cholesterol, certainly. But you can be an unhealthy vegan. I'm living proof. And you can be a very healthy meat eater. So it's not that. No, it's ethical reasons. I couldn't sort of live with myself anymore. I tried to convince myself that it was okay being a vegetarian, but then I found out what has to happen for you to have eggs. Like they gas the baby male chicks or liquidise them just because they want... It's horrible. And I told myself that I only ate free range, and I found out that free range meant they have to have 2 feet instead of, you know, bolted in a cage. And then dairy, I just couldn't, and I don't go around lecturing people about it, because I think it's a slow process, and I think people dig in if I started lecturing people, telling them they were bad. And also I think there is something to be said with, even if you're wrong, you know, that vegetarianism isn't any more ethical than, you know, eating meat. I think it's a step in the right direction psychologically, because I think all you can do is be better than you were yesterday. That's all. Just change the world a little bit, and giving up meat does make a difference to the world. There's this stat that if you eat meat every day, if you give up one day a week, we could feed another 100 million people, because just the amount of water and grain it takes to feed a cow to be eaten by a certain amount of people is like ridiculous times the amount of the nutrition you can get from plant-based things, you know, cutting down rainforests to feed cows and stuff. But, you know, I don't want to, because I think that annoys people and it puts them off and it makes them feel bad. And I just think you've got to change. You've got to change for your own reasons. But yeah, I do it for ethical reasons as opposed to health. I mean, it wouldn't make sense, would it, to eat plant-based stuff for health and then drink a bottle of red wine? So no, I just want to go, I didn't any animals today. It's that, really. How does it feel knowing that Afterlife has helped so many people? Amazing. It is the best thing about it, and I never thought it would be. And I've never done anything, you know, in entertainment. In fact, I've been belligerent. I've gone, you know, art isn't to, you know, change people's values or to preach. It's to entertain. And I still did that with Afterlife, and it was a happy coincidence that it did touch people in that way, which shows that if you do what's passionate, then you probably do make a difference anyway. You don't have to try, if you know what I mean. I mean, you can try not to harm anyone, but I just think if you do something that's genuinely interesting and entertaining and means something to you, then it will mean something to other people. But yeah, it feels, I mean, just the sheer amount of people that watched it. I've heard it's like 125 million now, which is crazy. And that figure is who watched the whole series. I know that some, I think it was like BBC iPlayer, when they say that, 12 million people watched this show, I looked at it, what they actually mean is that if it's like a 6-part thing, they mean that 2 million people watched each episode. So they go, that's 12. No, it isn't. That's 2 million people watched the whole episode. If I did that with Afterlife, what would that be? It'd be like 700 million people. No, 120 million people watched the whole show, which is staggering enough. Yeah, and that's what makes me worried about the next thing. What if the next thing I do only gets 50 million? I feel like a failure. I see these boy bands, right? So these poor boy bands, and they're all at 17, and they've had 3 number ones. And I know that when they get a number 2, their record company goes, "You bad boys, you give us, you're getting no more money. There's some other kids here." So it's terrible. You mustn't think about those things. You mustn't think about those things. It's lovely. You go, that's good, and then you mustn't think about it. But you do. How far have you got with the new series? Oh, Doris. Oh God. I mean, I've got 2 things on the go now that are almost at pilot stage. In fact, I just thought there's a 3rd thing as well, that might happen. But I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to do one of them. I don't know which one to do. I don't know whether to do both. They've both been sort of greenlit if I want to do them by Netflix. I can't tell you about it, but anyway, one's an animation and I'm in one. But I've got the idea and the synopsis, and I've probably got a cobbled together a pilot script. But I'm enjoying stand-up too much. I would be happy to never do another show again. It's got to that stage. And not just because I think I can't beat Afterlife or whatever, but I don't know what there is to beat full stop. But there is something to beat with stand-up. I can change it every night. I can go with the flow. I can see the world. I can be... I feel that I'm braver in stand-up than anything else I do as well. But I do love the other thing as well. I also feel guilty. I feel like I should be working in the day. You know what I mean? So, yeah. It's like you've got to write an essay and you think, oh, I've got a few weeks yet. And it just gets close, you go, oh, I've got to write an essay soon. That's why I never give myself deadlines, because that'll just stress me out. I'll do it when it happens, or not. And there might be another idea that comes along and beats them both, so I don't know.